Good day and welcome to the CINCY SLANGIN BEARCAT podcast. I'm Coomer, joined as always by Hummer. Hummer, what's up, buddy?
Xavier takes another devastating L at home. They're going to have a 4-game losing streak beginning Saturday, December 9th. Bearcats are going to roll into Centos. They're going to bring their dirty laundry, and they're going to wipe it all over the court. It is a great day to be a Cincinnati Bearcat basketball fan.
Indeed, it is. Indeed, it is. I love rooting for the Bearcats. I don't love it as much, but I also love rooting against the Xavier Musketeers, and boy, has that been fun recently. But we've got a unique guest on the podcast this week. Someone who's wearing colors that have never been worn on this podcast before. It's quite upsetting and distressing, and I apologize to our viewers who are checking this out on YouTube. But we've got Xavier superfan Bob Schnurr on the podcast, who I imagine has some regrets about agreeing to appear on this podcast tonight of all nights.
I live with no regrets. If this is the worst thing I've ever done, I'm in good shape.
Mr. Bob Schnurr is joining the Cincy SLANGIN BEARCAT basketball podcast. How are you doing tonight, sir? How are you? Just go ahead and give us the raw emotion. If you need to just let it out, do some crying, we'll go ahead and be a virtual shoulder for you to cry on here tonight.
Well, started my day off, and I'm not trying to be gross here, but I had a colonoscopy this morning, which was better than tonight.
Oh,
much better than the game. Much better. This might be how can I put it? And I think Sean Miller would agree with me. This might be the softest edition of Xavier basketball I've seen in a while. They don't rebound.
Yep.
They don't defend.
Yep.
Even better.
I'm sorry?
Nope. Keep going. Keep going.
Now, case in point, they lose to Oakland, give up 38 points in the paint. They lose tonight to Delaware, and they gave up close to, I think it was 40 points in the paint. So I know UC is going to shoot some threes, but my advice to Wes Miller would be just drive the basketball because they don't guard anybody.
Yeah.
And trust me, that's hard to say, but the truth is what the truth is.
It's not what I'm accustomed to. It's not what I'm accustomed to. And look, I take lots of pride in not watching your team play. I'll be honest. I do not take time out of my day to watch Xavier, but I do follow box scores. I do follow game casts, and I'll occasionally check out a game. Second half of the Oakland game was a perfect example. It's jarring to see year over year how much softer Xavier appears to be on the interior than they've been in years past. I even look at this Delaware box score, and Xavier shoots 50% from the field. They shoot 50% from three, 8 of 16, I believe. And those two things alone, you look at it and say, how do you lose at home? Well, fast forward, they've got 17 turnovers.
And
they're also not taking care of the ball.
Delaware had 26 points off 17 turnovers. Can't do that.
So where are you then? Like, actually, let me pause. I want some Xavier fandom bona fides for the listeners out there. Nobody's going to be familiar with you on a Cincinnati Bearcat podcast. Give me a little bit of background about where your Xavier fandom originated, and why you hate yourself so much. Like, why are you punishing yourself in Cincinnati, Ohio, being a Xavier fan rather than a Cincinnati Bearcat fan?
Well, because up until this year, I am rooting for the better of the two programs. This year, I'll give you guys your due. But number one, I grew up. You familiar with Norwood? Grew up in Norwood. I could walk. We used to sneak into Xavier football games. There was a hole in the fence on the backside of Cochran Field, and we would all sneak in. So I've been going to Xavier football games since I was 8, 9, 10 years old.
Wow.
My dad, my only real positive memories of my dad was at Schmidt Fieldhouse. He would stand at the top of the fieldhouse, take me to the games, and this is when you could smoke cigarettes in a gym. And it was like a cloud, haze of smoke. And I just became a Xavier fan over the years. It's who he rooted for. It's kind of who, he brought me with him, and that's how I did it. And then for years, if you remember on the radio, I don't call anymore because it's too hard to get on. I was Xavier Bob on the radio. I was about the only fan that ever called in.
Xavier Bob, you're a Xavier fan on the radio. When's the last time you called in?
I bet you 8 years, 10 years ago. Probably
you might just start calling in again after this 4-game losing streak.
Well, you can't get on anymore. I used to be able to get on in 10 or 15 minutes. Now you're waiting for a half hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I'm old, man. I don't have time to do that. But actually, I was the years that you guys are too young to remember this, when Steve Collier and Bob Miller, you know what I'm talking about? And all the kid from Columbus, number 14. I rooted for UC then because Xavier was everybody's homecoming. I mean, we were losing to Thomas More, losing to Northern Kentucky, and you guys were in a tournament with Ed Badger, who had the best sport coats in America. You'd have to look that up, but he had great sport coats. And I rooted for UC then, but then as the two programs got pretty close, that's when I went with my Xavier allegiance. So
that's a pretty good origin story, Bob. When you're calling out deep cuts of Xavier football fandom, I do have to tip my cap to that. Though I am surprised they made you you had to sneak into those games. You couldn't just waltz in. They weren't encouraging you, no matter what age, to just waltz on in. They needed people to.
The home stands were always halfway, pretty full.
Wow!
I'll tell you who I saw play Xavier, and you guys are too young to remember this too. They played Youngstown State one year and got beat 48-0. Youngstown State had this quarterback that threw the ball all over the yard. You remember Ron Jaworski from the Eagles?
Yeah, Ron Jaworski.
It was Ron Jaworski playing for Youngstown State. Man, he was
Jaws.
Unbelievable. So
wow,
now if you
lit up Xavier.
You give me too much crap about XU, I'm going to bring up Scott Satterfield. So, all right,
this is a basketball episode.
Touche, right?
This touche indeed, and frankly, it's only this opening 7-game stretch from the Bearcats here that has us on cloud 9 with the basketball program. It's been a rough stretch here for us as well. We're just starting to seemingly get our sea legs in the Wes Miller era. Now we haven't played anybody unless you count Georgia Tech, which was a blowout.
Had 2 big wins last week.
Has beat a couple good teams.
Yeah.
UIC, ranks comparably to a team like Delaware, but otherwise, Xavier is for all intents and purposes the first real test for the Bearcats on Saturday. And we know how hard it is, and it's been for the Bearcats going to Cintas. Where's your frame of mind now? Because my frame of mind heading into the game is I just can't wait to deliver the kill shot to the Xavier basketball program. NIL is already presenting its own difficulties, and I'm seeing Sean Miller sputter here in year 2. And I just see a tremendous opportunity for the Cincinnati Bearcats to walk into Cintas, get an incredible victory that sends the Xavier fan base into an absolute tizzy. I'm not sure how they will mentally recover from what the Bearcats have an opportunity to do on Saturday. Where are you at with this game?
Right now, with this game, I don't think it's going to send the fan base into a tizzy because I think the fan base knows where we're at right now. Right now, if you ask me, put my hand on the Bible and tell the truth, right now you guys are a better basketball team than us. Does that mean you're going to win the game? You never know. It's college basketball.
You never know. I wish that's what it meant, but that's not what it means.
But right now you're playing better basketball than us on both ends of the floor. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything. Beginning of the season, I thought, we win this one. We'll be okay. But right now, I'm not in that mindset. I'm just hoping they come out with some fight and play hard. The effort against Houston and the effort against Purdue was fine. But the effort against Oakland, the effort against Delaware wasn't. It's that simple.
It does seem to be a sign that the Musketeers are getting up for the good opponents. I cannot remember a time when Xavier didn't get up for the Bearcats, so I doubt effort's going to be an issue. But if you fundamentally can't protect the rim, and the Bearcats, unlike years past, are bringing a very, very large lineup to Cintas this weekend, where Victor Locken is finishing in the post, stretching it out to 3. Aziz Bandego is making waves in terms of his presence in the interior as well. Are you what are you most concerned about with the Bearcats coming over to Norwood? Have you been able to watch the team? Have you been able to watch the Bearcats
I've
at all?
watched a bit. I've watched a bit.
Okay.
What I'm concerned about is our defense, because people are just owning the paint on us. And with Victor Locken and Van Dago, you should have your way unless they miss a ton of layups. But again, that's just things that happen. But even if they miss a ton of layups, we're not rebounding the ball very well either. So, Hummer, you can ask me questions or yell at me.
Come on, Hummer, jump in here, Hum.
Say anti-Xavier.
Bob's friendly. He won't bite.
Oh, I was just over here doing something really special.
Uh-oh.
I'm debating whether I should publish the updates to the Xavier men's Wikipedia page.
Sure, go ahead.
Hummer's a Wikipedia editor.
Are you? That's wonderful.
In his spare time. Hummer, I mean, where are you at mentally, Hum, with the game? With Xavier on the skid, Cincinnati peaking, coming off this. Look, we haven't played anybody. That's the hardest thing with the Bearcats. I'm super excited. I love the makeup of the team. I love the roster and how they play. I love everything about it, but there's just been no measuring sticks outside of Georgia Tech. That's
kind of like well, first off, I'm confident in this team because even when we're playing, like last year, we would play these bad teams or the not as tough competition, and we would drop a couple of these games. We would lose them. We would be too close. And now, we're dominating every team that we're playing, and we're winning, and we're playing a style of basketball that it's repeatable. We're seeing them do it again and again, and they're doing the things that last year we just begged them to do: rebound, playing defense. But now we also have shot makers. Everybody can shoot a three. We saw Odio Guama, putting up a three for some reason.
We don't need any more of those, but we did see it happen. I don't need any more.
I don't need to see that again. But we do have guys who can shoot it. So, but at the same time, you just know the Musketeers are going to be hyped. They always somehow, some way, Xavier always shows up for this game. So it's like anything can happen Saturday, but this is one. It's that one of those years where this team is just so good. You just want it. You want it so bad.
Well, a good friend of mine, Xavier fan, said this is the first time, and again, not trying to disparage UC, this is the first time UC fans, I think, can feel real comfortable about going into the Cintas Center and anticipating a win. I think I
I don't even know that we're necessarily comfortable. I think it would be silly to say we're comfortable going into Cintas, but my mindset is, look, if we think Wes Miller is the guy who's going to restore Cincinnati Bearcat basketball to its rightful place in the national conversation, if we're going to get back to tournament basketball, if we're going to be a team that can make a run in March, we can't tuck our tail between our legs as we head to our biggest rival and be afraid of beating a team that, frankly, we're better than. We're better than Xavier this year. I'm looking at the rosters, looking at how they're playing. There's no reason for Wes Miller and this team to not be able to go get this otherwise elusive victory at Cintas. And so rather than, I think the natural instinct of a lot of Bearcat fans is to say, oh no, they lost to Delaware. Now they're really going to lock in and really focus. And it makes it that much worse if we lose. It's like, that's such a loser's mentality. That's Bearcat teams of old. That's, the restoration job post Mick Cronin that we're talking about. This is a team that's put together, that is built to win big games. Wes Miller only had 2 regular season wins last year against top 100 Ken Palm teams. This is the first game of this season. And this team is playing better as a team. It doesn't have an individual scorer like Landers Nolly or David DeJulius, but the team construction makes so much more sense this year. They're shooting with CJ Frederick. Victor Locken's making threes. John Newman, the defender, is back, where you can put him on some of the best wing scorers for Xavier. Everything makes more sense, and it's set up for Cincinnati to go to Norwood and finally get a victory at Cintas. And it's time for us to act like it. So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I'm headed in there confident. We should be confident, but we can't overlook it because that would be naive to history.
You got tickets?
No.
You going?
I'm not.
Nah.
I don't go to the Lions game.
If I had an extra, I'd give it to you.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Just keep me posted.
Unfortunately, my son's glomming on to me.
How's well, that's the origin story of how this came to be. Was Bob and I were I guess I was more just kind of venting to you on a cold morning on a soccer field. This was in the
Galway
midst
Park.
of, I mean, this was a couple years ago. This might have
Just 2 years
still been,
ago,
this was
yeah.
either year one Wes Miller. This might have been the last year John Brandon. I can't remember, but
I think it was
the
year one.
basketball year one Miller basketball team's definitely in turmoil at that point. We're just kind of cobbling together a roster. Football was peaking. Football was in a great spot. We're not talking about football tonight, but that's a little different now. But a lot of things have changed since I floated this idea to you to finally do a little Xavier preview, which we don't typically do. You are the first Xavier fan on here in history, so that is a tip of the cap to you, Bob. We typically don't like your kind in these parts, but what's your official prediction, Bob? What do you expect to happen? What do you think is going to go down?
As much as it hurts me to say this, I think you guys will win somewhere between 8-13, and it could get worse.
Wow.
And I'm not trying to blow smoke. The whole deal, you know me. I'm usually pretty honest about these things, but I just don't like what I see this year. We're asking Des Claude, who's a good player, but he was the 6th, 7th man last year, got about 10 minutes a game. We're asking him to be the alpha dog. You know, it really makes a difference with no Fremantle and no Jerome Hunter. And we lost those guys late, so we had to go get a couple replacements from the portal or Europe. And the Europeans right now have no clue. I mean, they're skilled, but they have no clue. Remember Victor, his first 2 years?
Well, I've always been a Victor fan, but I do know, there was moments he's playing like a chicken with his head cut off at times.
Right.
Everything was going too fast.
What American basketball is like. Right. Look at him now. He's a completely different player.
Completely different player.
I will ease your fears about Saturday in one regard. Have you heard of the Coomer jinx?
No.
Okay, so this is a real thing. This is real. The minute Coomer says anything remotely positive in a meaningful fashion, it has to come from the heart.
Can't fake it. You can't
fake it. The team immediately does the opposite of what Coomer said. Like it's
concerning.
It's like 99.9% accurate.
It's a bit concerning. I should be alarmed with my, I guess, confidence / just eagerness to play this game on Saturday, which I wouldn't have said the past couple of years. I thought the Bearcats went from easy to defend last year to more difficult this year. There are just so many more different ways to attack. You can't really just key on one guy. And the way we rebound the ball is incredible. Daniel Skillings, the rebounding tenacity from Daniel Skillings, he's honestly becoming like a wing Danny Fortson. It's an amazing rebounding rate.
And I think you guys are better defensively. With Newman on the floor and Jizzle on the floor and Day on the floor, you're better defensively than you were.
Absolutely.
You're going to be
absolutely.
It's harder to score on you too, which is actually, it's a big difference. People don't realize that. You know, again, I'm watching tonight, Delaware just getting the ball in the paint and making layup after layup. It's like you can't win a basketball game that way. You just can't. So let me ask you guys a question.
Ask away.
Every year, one team, UC, XU, somebody comes up out of nowhere and plays a good game. Who's your UC guy? Who's your XU guy?
My UC guy, I don't know if anyone's necessarily an unknown per se. I think that Wes Miller will tighten up the lineup a little bit. So guys like Josh Reed, I don't expect to see him in the game. My Xavier killer this year is CJ Frederick. I think CJ Frederick's going to bomb some threes, and that's not an unknown guy by any means. I mean, he's got a pretty good reputation across the country, but I think that his 3-point shooting is going to be a huge key in the game. And I think that if the Bearcats are as deliberate about attacking the rim and the paint as they should be early in the game, that should lead to more CJ Frederick opportunities as the end of the first half and second half progress. So if I'm going to be very specific, CJ Frederick 3-point onslaught second half. What about you, Hummer?
I can't disagree with that, but I would say if you're talking quote unknown or who hasn't kind of had that game yet this year, I'm going with Seamus. I feel like this is a guy who hasn't had that game this year, and this is the one where this is kind of that I'm coming out of nowhere, show you that I've played Xavier before. I know their ticks, and we're going to exploit them.
Is he okay? Is it like all right?
It sounds like it's a day-to-day injury. It's
Okay.
soreness. So assuming he plays, that's a great pick because there
Well,
is going to be a comfort level there.
He's a Xavier killer. He had 28
Yeah.
and 26 against us when he played at Butler.
I went
And
to
he won both
the Cincy Reigns tip-off event for Cincinnati basketball, and Wes Miller was introducing each player for the Bearcats, and he brings CMOS on stage, and the first thing he does is talk about how many points he scored against Xavier last year, and if he drops a cool 45 on him this year, that'll be nice. So he was really talking CMOS up from an offensive standpoint, and we haven't seen it in like a full game yet. That's why that's probably a really good pick, Hummer. I like that pick. That's wild card.
Well, and to be honest with you, if you look at CMOS, because I watch a lot of Big East basketball, in the other games, he's 6-8 points. He played us and dropped 25. So it's just one of those things.
That's a nice pick.
Oh, come on, just get me super
you,
excited. I want that one guy that's just every year Xavier has the one guy you're just like, why do you still have to be on this team? Why haven't you gone to the NBA? Why haven't you gone to the G League? Why haven't you why are you a 6-year senior? Like just leave already. So I'm glad to see that you guys have someone that annoys Xavier basketball.
Here's who scares me from Xavier, and it's not necessarily founded in fact. I think you might know where I'm going with this. He had no impact tonight against Delaware. He played 4 minutes. Trey Green. Trey Green makes me nervous because the Bearcats were recruiting him at one point in time. He's allegedly a lights out shooter. Now it's been more miss than hit so far this season. We've got our highly regarded point guards in Day Thomas and Jizzle James. I love Jizzle James. He's one of my favorite Bearcat freshmen in ages. I mean, he's a tremendous player, great athlete, but he's a very different player than Trey Green. Trey Green's a guy who just scares me in the sense that he went 0-1 tonight in 4 minutes. He's been off the mark, and it feels like what better way to have a coming out party in front of your home fans than against your crosstown rivals who did at one point in time try and get your services to Cincinnati. And that's the one guy that does scare me. That's a little bit little bit irrational, but Trey Green would be the guy for me.
I'll just say D Davis. Does that bring up bad memories for you?
It does bring up bad memories. There's lots of guys that bring up bad memories. It's just not a lot of very likable program, Bob. You don't really have likable guys.
What? Yeah, we do. They're all good guys, man.
I don't know. There's just
a lot of they all hang out with each other all the time.
That's not true. Never. I don't believe that for a second.
You do know
we've got a bunch of sweethearts.
They can't anymore because the building's condemned. For years, you see kids and Xavier kids, basketball players would play at Schmidt all the time in the summer. But now the building's condemned, so we can't do that anymore.
Where do you watch the game? Oh, you're going to be at the game. You're going to the game.
Yeah. My UC
Where are your seats?
To the right of Xavier's bench in the corner, 9 rows up. So
behind the bench, you said the Xavier bench.
To the right of it, I'm in the corner.
Oh, okay.
About 9 rows up.
Good seats. Yeah. Good seats.
Yeah, I got to buy diamonds for my wife to keep this.
Can I get you to scream Bandego? In a loving way in person.
At the
we're
game?
Big Aziz Bandego guys here.
At the game?
Yeah, just a like friendly, hey Bandego, Bandego.
There's no monetary reason we can't make that happen.
Hey,
like
I need to. Here's some inside talk. I need you to set Ryan tomorrow straight on Victor Locken. He's still very skeptical on Victor Locken. And I told him that you were coming on the podcast, and he was elated to hear that. But I haven't quite gotten him to fully believe in Victor Locken yet. I think he's skeptical that it's going to translate to Big 12 basketball.
Well, here's the thing with Victor Locken. The 3 years he's gotten a little better each year, in my opinion.
A lot better.
And he's put on weight. He's put on muscle. I remember his first year, he'd get an offensive rebound and go back up, and the ball just would go anywhere. Now he's laying him back in. He can hold his own in the paint. He can wall up. He can defend people. He couldn't do that 2 years ago. And Wes has done a good job with him. I think he'll be fine. Now, Big 12 basketball is Big 12 basketball. You guys are going to get upset. You're going to go to Oklahoma State and get homer calls and all that, in that league.
It's going to happen.
But he'll be fine. You'll be fine. it's not like, let's put it this way. You've competed with Houston the last few years. I just saw Houston play. Houston's very good. Everybody's picking them to be 1, 2, 3 in the Big 12.
Right.
You guys can compete with them. So if you can compete with them, you compete with in the Big 12. It's very simple.
Correct.
You didn't ask me,
No,
my UC guy, you know, I think is going to be a difference in the game. And he's going
who's
to be
that?
because of his defense. I think Newman's going to be a difference maker.
I
We don't
like
have
that. Not necessarily an offensive performance, but just a difference maker defensively.
Right. He's going to do all the little things that help you win a basketball game. We don't have a whole lot of scorers. So he's good enough to shut one of them down. That's going to make a difference. And he's going to get some offensive rebounds. He's going to do the dirty work. He's going to get 50-50 balls. A guy like we had years ago, if you remember Justin Cage, that kind of player that just, you don't notice him until the game's over and say, wow, he did a whole lot.
Admittedly, he was, Wes Miller and his staff was really adamant last season that it made a massive difference to not have him in the lineup.
You missed him.
And I knew we missed him, but I would say now I'm really seeing the impact. You need a wing defender. I would say his addition makes a huge difference. It also makes a huge difference that we don't have a guy like Jeremiah Davenport in the lineup that was a extreme defensive liability. And I'm not trying to be overly harsh, but there's not an obvious weak link outside of maybe Day Thomas. Like you see teams try and take advantage of his size. But now with Bandago and Locken on the court at the same time, it's much more difficult to post up a point guard. So I do think we've got protections in place now for that. But yeah, the team defensively, it just doesn't have the same weak links that it did in years past. And I just think, there's no reason to not think we're going to walk in there and get a victory this week. We need to. I feel like we need to do this. This is going to send the Wes Miller era into hyperdrive. And if we don't get the victory, all we get to do is keep talking about not winning big games. And so I need this victory on Saturday badly. I need it worse than you do, Bob.
Here's what happens if we get the victory on Saturday. Stetson right now, don't even know where Stetson University is. Not even going to bother looking it up. But I know that it cost $3 with fees to get a ticket off of StubHub to go watch the University of Cincinnati Bearcats play Stetson. If we beat Xavier, that doubles to $6.
Stetson's in Louisiana, by the way.
Nice call. All right, well, Hummer, let me hear your official prediction before we let Bob go here. Let's all put it on the record. Bob says he's got Xavier losing by 8 to 13 points, potentially worse. I like the confidence, Bob.
Hey, truth hurts sometimes, boys.
That's right. What's your prediction, Hum?
I think the Bearcats are going to drop a minimum of 75 points. I think they're going to hold Xavier into the mid to low 60s mark. And we're gonna walk out of there with a convincing victory. We're not going to be sweating with the last 5 or so minutes of the game. Okay,
I'm going to deviate from both of your confidence in the Cincinnati Bearcats winning convincingly. This is going to go down to the wire. This is going to be a last minute of the game, pins and needles. Bearcat fans are going to start wondering, do we have a go-to guy in the final minute of a game? But we are going to pull it out. We're going to pull it out through defensive stops, through key stretches, and we're going to prevail with a 79 to 77 victory. And the game-winning bucket is going to be a Daniel Skillings offensive rebound putback. That's my prediction for how the Bearcats win by 2.
Now, I will say, if it gets down to what you're saying, Zach, then the Cintas Center does come into play. That might be the difference in the game at that point in time. But you never know.
You never know. Yeah. Well, Bob, it's been a tremendous it's been a tremendous honor to have. I didn't know you were a Xavier celebrity, so this is exciting. We had Xavier Bob on the podcast.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Please do. Please do.
My wife and I, God, this is probably 10, 12 years ago, first watch out in Kenwood, eating breakfast, talking. Guy sitting behind me, he's got his daughter, and he's got a Xavier sweatshirt on or whatever. Daughter's about 12 or 13 years old. I hear her whisper to her dad, "Is that Xavier Bob?" No, God, no. I'm nobody, dude.
Xavier Bob, I love it. Actually, you know what? I should have asked you a couple of questions, like just quick hitters. Who's your least favorite Cincinnati Bearcat of all time? Like, who's the guy you just couldn't stand?
The guy I couldn't stand. Probably Art Long.
Art Long. Yeah. Wow, deep cut. Little before my time, where I couldn't digest all of the that era. I was too young. But Art Long, huh? What about him?
Just the way he played. I mean,
he punched a horse,
Xavier
right?
had guys that are punky. Xavier had a guy, Eddie Johnson was punky. Art Long was punky. You know, he got away with crap. So
do you have like a guilty pleasure Bearcat? A guy who, you know, you don't like the team, you don't like the program, but it's like, you know what, I do respect and like that player.
3 of them for you.
Okay.
Anthony Buford. He came in when Huggins' first year transferred down from Akron, single-handedly beat Xavier at the Gardens. Danny Fortson. He dropped 40 on Xavier at the Gardens. And I never forget, we only lost by 10. And somebody was saying, yeah, if Fortson, I said, look, we could have played 3 more hours and we weren't going to win the game. So it didn't make a difference. And the respect I had for Kenyon Martin, because when he came in as a freshman, he couldn't make a layup. By the time he graduated, through hard work, he was the best player in the country. So if you can't appreciate that, then why watch basketball?
Great names. I loved Anthony Buford's TV analysis as a kid. He was tremendous on TV. Didn't really get to see him play as much. Love the Fortson call. Fortson is like the lost Bearcat, where his productivity is unbelievable. He only played 3 years. And if he had played the 4th year, we would be talking about him in a completely different stratosphere.
He's an all-time great.
Just an all-time great Bearcat. And obviously Kenyon. I mean, everyone knows what we've got there.
Wait.
You got
there it is. The Fortson. Put some respect on his name.
Conversely, who's your most hated Musketeer? And somebody you secretly might even like.
Gosh.
Yeah. Hummer, you want to kick us off there? Who's the guy you can't stand?
You can't
That's
hurt
probably
my feelings.
easier.
You can't hurt my feelings. I was a high school principal. I have no feelings.
Kenny Freese is like the obvious choice, but honestly, and like just take it the other way. I respected David West. I hated him, but I respected him. Tremendous like competitor there. But I'm just trying to think why I can't think of the guy's name. He just freaking rocked, like he dropped 40 like twice on us, just raining threes.
Blew it.
Trayvon blew it.
Yes.
I'm surprised by that.
Dropped 41.
Oh, it was like it came out of nowhere. You're just like, what are you? Does this guy gonna miss? No, it's just like he's single-handedly winning the game.
Yeah, he was. I like Trayvon didn't bother me though. Like that's not. I didn't find him to be like a hateable guy. Obviously, I despise the performances he put up against us, but it's sort of like knockdown shooter. Had a cup of coffee in the NBA. Freeze is probably the guy who comes first. Like he was the instant reaction. Can't stand Kenny Freeze. I'm not sure what it is about him. Just the way he carried himself. It's really not the incident itself. It's just everything else. I just did not enjoy playing against Kenny Freeze for the number of years we did. And then Makura. Makura is the worst.
I was going to say, Jay, I thought you said JP. I was surprised you didn't.
Yeah, Makura is the worst. And then the first guy I remember, like the first Xavier player I remember hating somewhat irrationally was Kevin Fry. And it's all about that. I just remember a young kid watching the game, running down the court, all that stuff. Just can't stand it. There's a profile clearly that I can't stand from Xavier. And then I'm thinking back for guys who are like maybe just begrudgingly respected and didn't mind so much as Xavier players. Romain Sato comes to mind. I don't know what it is. I liked the build of Romain Sato. I'm a calf guy, great calves. And but yeah, overall, he's not a guy. I didn't mind Romain Sato. Not a guy. I hate.
You said that because Sean Miller does a podcast every week. I know you guys don't watch it. I get. But they asked him who his favorite Xavier player to coach was. Romain Sato.
How about that?
That's weird.
Good vibes from Romain Sato for sure.
Oh, he's a legend in Europe.
Is he? He's like he's got a Pete Michael career going.
Maybe.
Or I guess it'd be over now. How old would Romain Sato be?
Oh, he's done. Yeah, he's got like 5 kids. Miller was saying he took Arizona to Barcelona for a trip a couple years ago, and they went up to Valencia, where Sato played, and there's a big mural of him on the wall, about 20 by 20 feet. Wow. He's a legend over there, man. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, he's 42 years old now. Pete Michael had a career like that in Spain.
I forgot about
Incredible European career.
Pete
Pete
Michael.
Michael, yeah. That's a
Here's
Bearcat I
another
like.
Bearcat I love to hate. And not because he made the prediction. I just was not a Terry Nelson fan. Just wasn't. It just, one of those things. Just didn't drive with Terry Nelson.
He's fantastic on radio. He's better on radio than he is on TV. He's really, really good on the radio. Just calls like a great game. Pretty honest. Doesn't really hold back. Basically like a voice of the fan on the radio. But yeah.
Gentlemen,
It's been a pleasure. Xavier Bob,
what?
I'm proud of you, and I'm thankful that you decided to still join us after this devastating defeat tonight. You represented yourself and your program well, and I apologize in advance for what we have to do to you on Saturday. It's going to be
one
ugly.
last question. That's a good looking lid you got on. What is it?
It's a minor league baseball team from Asheville, North Carolina. Blanking on, I think it might be like the Rattlesnakes or something, or the
Okay, I like the lid.
I don't know. My wife bought me a few minor league hats for Christmas or my birthday, and I like them. I enjoy them. They actually fit me. I've got a huge dome, and this one fits.
I'm not going to comment on your dome.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you, guys. Nice to meet you.
Appreciate it, sir. Yep. Well,
Have a good night.
I'll be texting you Saturday. Godspeed.
All right, have a good one. Good night.
See you, Bob.
Go Muskies.
All right, Ryan Tamara, I'm going to talk you off the ledge here. It's super simple. The reason why you're afraid to embrace Victor Larkin is that you're traumatized by Chris Vogt. You're traumatized by Chris Vogt. Chris Vogt had that stretch at the very beginning of his career at Cincinnati where you just thought he was going to be, college basketball player of the year. And then he immediately.
Did we ever think that about Chris? Nobody ever thought that about Chris Vogt.
It's hyperbole, Coomer. It's hyperbole. Okay. We thought he was going to be good. We thought he was going to be insane, incredible, like a guy that you could run the offense through, and he turned out to be just absolutely horrible. And
nobody thought that except John Brannon. Nobody thought that Chris Vogt could be a guy you could run an offense through except John Brannon.
He had 6 games where
why are you making me end this wonderful podcast by even
all I'm saying is
about that era?
You do not need to worry, Ryan Tamara. Victor Larkin is the real deal.
Well, the thing about centers, this is why I was excited and bullish on Victor Larkin, is that as centers grow and get older, they grow into their bodies more, they get stronger, the coordination slightly improves. But most importantly for Vic, the game is finally slowed down. He looks confident. His passing is finally being accentuated. Did you see some of the passes against FGCU?
Great.
Oh, gorgeous.
Hitting the backdoor cutter just for a layup. Beautiful.
Yeah. I don't think we don't have to do much more, but I want to bring up one thing. And it's just the mindset of the Bearcat fan as we head into this game at Xavier, because I do think there's this natural reaction from our fan base to get very nervous about the games. We have to acknowledge the fact that the recent run of Crosstown Shootouts is not to our favor, and it has not gone the way we would want it to go. And I think it has caused some PTSD amongst the fan base when it comes to thinking about Xavier, especially when playing at Cintas. There's no reason as a Cincinnati Bearcat fan right now to not puff your chest out a bit and put your money where your mouth is and believe in this team to walk into Cintas and their ability to go get a victory and send this team to 8-0. We are the better team. We're playing better basketball. And if Wes Miller is building what he seems to be building, we got to start winning these kinds of games. And so I do think Wes is feeling pressure on the game. I imagine the players are to an extent, but hopefully Wes is absorbing that and keeping the team loose. But the reality is he knows that we have to win this type of game. We won 2 of them last year before the NIT, and they were against Central Florida. You got to be able to go get a win on the road in a hostile environment. And let's see if Wes Miller from tip off on can get this Bearcat team playing good basketball from the jump. That game last year was far closer than I expected when you saw what it was going into halftime. But you cannot start a game that way, and you cannot go down by 17 and expect to win a Crosstown Shootout on the road. So for us to win the game, the start has to be strong. The Bearcats have to be defending from second 1 and on. And then I do think Bob made some great points about the Bearcats. We need to punish them inside. We need to get Vic Locken on the block. We need to find a way to feed Bandego and run some pick and rolls and find him at the rim. And then from there, you build outward and you start finding CJ Frederick. And if CMOS is playing, you hit CMOS for some threes. And then Newman. I mean, it builds inside out against Xavier when you look at how they've performed so far this year. Their rebounding is not great, Hum. Look at their KenPom stats. Their rebounding is not great. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Your thoughts on the mentality of a Bearcat fan heading into this game?
I'll get to that because I want just because you brought it up. Like if I'm going off of Xavier Bob's analysis of Xavier, this seems like a situation where we are going to match up really well against them. That we, if they're a poor rebounding team and we're rebounding, like we're a rebounding machine right now. And we know so far this year, every time we out rebound an opponent, it's not good for them. And so I think you're 100% right. And I think we're going to punch them inside, and then CJ and Seamus are just going to go ham on the perimeter. Like it's just going to be, it's almost setting up that this could be a bloodbath because of the mismatch. And I don't know.
The dream is to just run them off the court in their place. And just, that's where I think that, I know Bob is downplaying it. Like the fans have perspective. No, they don't. With Sean Miller as your coach, that program's got expectations. There's no way if the Bearcats walk in there and get just beat them down victory.
100% Twitter's going to go nuts, and there's going to be hashtag fire Sean Miller will be trending in Xavierland.
Oh, that's what I want. Give it to me.
Here's where I think the fan base is, at least. I think all the Bearcat fans. I'm not on Twitter, so I can't take the temperature of Twitter. I think we're all high right now on Bearcats. I think we're smoking the peyote and we're loving it. We're getting great visions of success. We're getting 0 bad trips. We're just feeling really confident about this squad. We're loving the type of basketball that we're seeing. We're beating these bad or opponents that aren't quality, but we've only had one real scare on our first road game, which a team that is, and I'm not going to say Howard's good, but they are projected to win their conference and they're projected to be an NCAA tournament team. But for the most part, we're doing what we need to do. We're crashing the boards. We're making shots. We're moving the ball around on offense. We got guys the team is gelling very early on, and it's setting up nicely for we're going to peak going into conference play. We're going to be such a well-oiled machine. So we just want this victory so bad. We want to justify that this team is good. And whether we beat them by 20 or we beat them by 2, it doesn't matter. It's going to justify our feelings that this is a good basketball team that we have.
The Cincinnati Bearcat fan base, we deserve a big win, right? Wes Miller has come into the season, and I would say from my expectations, the first 7 games have exceeded my expectation. He gets credit for getting Bandego cleared. That was not something that was a shoo-in. And he was vocal and he was consistent and he was clear and concise in his messaging. And he got all of the necessary support to make that happen. I'm hoping Jamil gets cleared here eventually too. You've got the proper name in place. From that standpoint, Wes Miller, awesome. From development standpoint, we're seeing Dan Skillings take a major leap forward in year 2. Is it perfect? No. But does he still have the same tenacity? Yes. And is he channeling it better? Yes. He's not down when he's missing shots. He rebounds. I mean what I say. He is a wing Danny Fortson. It is insane what he's doing on the boards. And the finishing is going to improve. That will get better.
What I'm saying. Like, I'm not trying to skip ahead of this year, but if he has the same type of jump from sophomore to junior year, we're talking a whole different. It's kind of like you're talking about Danny Fortson. You get a 4th year with Danny Fortson. You get that type of 3rd year out of Dan Skillings, and we're having a whole different conversation about Dan Skillings. We're actually worried about losing him to the draft.
So you're seeing Dan and Vic take big steps forward in their play. John Newman's playing better. I know everyone knew it's not like he was playing like this 2 years ago. John Newman's playing really, really good basketball. Always been a glue guy. Always been a good defender. He's picking his spots offensively. He's knocking down threes. John Newman's been super solid. And then the roster makes sense. He's put together a roster, and the way they're playing basketball simply makes sense. And so as a fan, you're right. We are just peaking. We just continue to peak again and again and again. And I'm ready to just fucking go to the stratosphere if we go into Cintas and get a win on Saturday. Head to 8-0, and all of a sudden we look at it and say, hey, Wes Miller's got his first big-time win since beating Illinois in year one. We need that. It's fair to ask for that. It's fair to want that and demand it and say we need some big-time victories. Because if we're going to make the tournament, Hummer, big-time victories are going to be needed in conference play. Why not start it now? Why not start it right now with our crosstown rival?
This is where I'm at headspace as a UC Bearcat fan. My expectations, or where I think this team is going, is that we're above just making the tournament. I'm actually starting to view that this team is special, and I think this is going to be a year there's a special run that happens where these Bearcats are going to be that dark horse Final Four team. They're going to be the ones that pop in. They're going to ruin people's lives. Victor Locken, we haven't said this in a long time, not that long, but since Gary Clark, he's a problem. He's a problem teams have to figure out. You have to guard him on the perimeter. You have to guard him in the paint. You have to guard the man everywhere, and he can pass. Like, legitimately is developing every tool you would see in a professional basketball player.
The Bearcats team is a problem. The Bearcats team is a problem. There's
everywhere.
Victor Locken. If he's not beating you inside, it might be outside. CJ Frederick is probably the best shooter in the country.
God, it's so pure.
CMOS, like you said, you've got a guy coming off the bench with really good offensive potential who I don't think has tapped into it yet, and it's coming. Daniel Skillings, the fact that you don't have to run an offense through him to get points and production from him. He's going to find ways to score, but he's also attacking the rim relentlessly. Let's also mention the fact that Aziz Bandego's sitting out there. What if Jamil Reynolds gets cleared? This team is a problem, Hummer.
We have 2 full rotations that we can just roll out. All 5 sub out. It's five new fresh bodies sub in.
Are we going to talk about the fact that Jizzle James' improvement is happening rapidly and that the trajectory could be this is the best point guard on the team by the end of the season? Are we going to talk about that yet?
That's very much in play. And I think we talked about this in earlier podcasts where we said, like, you're looking at, I think it was at the end of last season before we knew who we were bringing in recruit or transfer wise with what the recruiting was. And we were talking about next year being the year. Like this year would be just a kind of a build up year. Next year being the year. Still looks like that could be in play. But this year,
Aziz's
really
clearance does change that a bit. Reynolds, if we add Reynolds, that changes it a bit. But yeah, it's happening quickly, but you got to get victories like this one at Xavier. And so
we just seem to have an attitude. We seem to have we finally. I hate this. I guess this is the true it. This is it. This is my last point. For a long time, it feels like we have the it factor back. Like, baby, it's here. They're rocking the Jordans. They're coming out with an attitude that this is our court. You're going to play by our rules, and you're going to play the game the way we want you to play it. And we haven't had a team being able to assert dominance like that in every facet of the game in such a long time. And I think we're hungry for it. And so far, I just love everything I'm seeing from this team.
Bandego!
Has Coomer fired up.
Go Bearcats.